Hello YouTubers! I don't know if you did the same, but back in time, let's say the 80s and 90s, when I was a young record buyer and enthusiast, but it was before I started calling myself a record collector. I used to have these boxes with filing cards where I had catalogued all my records. Every artist or group had a card, and then I list all the records I had with them. Quite simple, right? Then in the late 1990s, when I took a computer course, this was before I had a computer, I first used Microsoft Office Excel program and realized that you could do quite good lists of your recordings using Excel, and that you could even do simple searches using it. So when I finally got my own first computer back in 1999, that was the first thing that I did. I started transferring the contents of my filing cards to an Excel file. Right. So since then I've been cataloging my records in a similar manner, but maybe 6-7 years ago I started using the website Discogs, where you can file your records, and even if I've not filed all my records, maybe I filed around 4,000 records all in all. And one interesting feature is that the website gives you an estimated value of the records. And of course, many have said before, and many will surely say now, that those figures shouldn't be taken not with a little pinch of salt, but with several lorries of salt. But still, it gives you an idea on how rare or sought after the records are. Well, when it comes to value, of course, these luxurious boxes by the Beatles in mono, the Beatles with the stereo box and the Queen box, and this CD box here with Swedish prog, and also you can see there the Rolling Stones in mono. Of course, they were a bit of luxury items of its time, so they still have quite a high value among collectors, naturally. I made a little list here of my 10 most sought after single albums, and when I checked Discogs, I got a bit of an interesting result. So this is my top 10 Discogs-Valuable albums, and I'm using the median figure, which probably is the best figure to use in this context. Again, this is just for fun. It's not, nor is it a bragging video. Oh, look at all the valuable records I have. Because most of our records aren't that valuable at all. At least when we talk about money. Well, especially not Discogs money. It's all about the music, really. But still, with all those caveats and reservations, let's get going. My top 10 Discogs-Valuable records. Number 10. Monica Zetterlund and Bill Evans, Waltz for Debbie. Reissue from 1973. According to Discogs, median figure $94, and that is 858 Swedish kronor. The original of Waltz for Debbie from 1964, I think, was it's still incredibly rare, because it was a record that sold very little, despite it's being classified as one of the best Swedish jazz albums of all time, with the great popular Swedish singer Monica Zetterlund and the jazz pianist Bill Evans and his trio. This was a budget reissue from 1973. It wasn't even the first budget reissue. There was one in, I think, around 1968, made by Sonora, that started as a Swedish record company, then became a sub-label to Philips, because Philips bought it. This is, I mean, even though there have been many different reissues of this album since 1964, the original is of course the most valuable one. I haven't got that one, but I've got 2 reissues, and this is the one from 1973. It has a different cover, and it's on Philips. And as I said, it was issued as a budget reissue back in the early 70s. Today, it's not really a budget issue anymore. Number 9, and that is the album Dice by the Swedish prog band Dice. Swedish prog band, as I said, symphonic prog band. You can compare them a bit to Gentle Giant, yes, Genesis perhaps, Emerson, Lake Palmer. This is a issue recorded in the mid 1970s of the Marilla label that was owned and run by the record company entrepreneur and rock singer Hans Edler. That label usually recorded, well, simpler pop music and Swedish dance band, and now and then they recorded children records and some rock revival records. So the prog material on that label is quite rare, and this is probably one of the rarest and most sought after albums on that label, Dice. Well worth checking out if you enjoy good Swedish symphonic prog. It's recorded in 1977 to 1978. Okay, and this is according to Discogs, valued $96 or 875 Swedish kronor. Dice. I think you will notice that this list will be mainly Swedish acts and groups, with some exceptions. Number 8, or rather, it's a split number 7. We don't have a number 8, we have a split 7. So 7A is the Spotniks, and live in Japan. To my great surprise, Discogs claims that this is worth $100 and 915 Swedish kronor. I know, of course, that the Spotniks from Gothenburg, the guitar group from Gothenburg, led by Bosse Winberg, they were very popular in Japan and in France, and so hence they got quite a lot of collectors looking for their records. So maybe that's one of the reasons why this particular record is so sought after. It is a very good live recording, made in Tokyo, and with some of their most famous songs or tracks. So good album. I mean, the Spotniks were or still are a very great guitar group based around Bosse Winberg, and some of their albums are quite sought after. Right. Okay, the Spotniks live in Japan splits the 7th place on my list with another Swedish group from Stockholm, a 60s beat group called The Mascots. And it's this record, LP, from it's their second album. I think it's from 1967 or something like that, on Decca. They would later form into a progressive or politically progressive left-wing group called Fria Proteatern, but that's a different story. Back here they were still a very good beat group, 60s beat group. Of course, when we talk about value here, we talk about records that are in immaculate condition. This is not in immaculate condition, it's rather worn, but still playable, so maybe it shouldn't really be on this list, but let's imagine it's in immaculate condition. Yeah, mascots. Okay, you might think that this is getting a bit repetitive now, because on place 6, on 6th place on this top 10 list, we have a record that we've already looked at, but it's another issue. It's Monica Zetterlund and Bill Evans, Waltz for Debbie. This is not the original either. This is a limited numbered issue. I think 1,000 copies, and it was issued as a Record Store Day issue back in 2013. And it's funny, that's a limited edition issue. Well, that's very difficult to say. Limited edition reissue from well, as recently as 2013 has the value has risen so much, so I now have to pay more than 3 times as much as what I paid for it when it was new, maybe 3-4 times even. This is, according to Discogs, median now valued at $105 and 963 kronor. So that's a bit fun, right? Place 5. Well, back to the Spotniks. It's funny that the Spotniks and Monica Zetterlund are so, well, active on this list, because I wouldn't call myself a collector of any of those bands, even though I have quite a lot of Spotniks albums. I have to, I'm a Spotniks collector. I'm not a Monica Zetterlund collector though. Not really. There's loads of Zetterlund albums that I don't have. Anyway, this is the Spotniks in Acapulco, Mexico. Also from the late 60s, not sure exactly which year, I forgot that right now, I didn't write it down. But this is actually from 1960, no I can't say. Anyway, the Spotniks, they went all over the world to record music and to find good songs to record. They had different themes on many of their albums. They had Spanish themes, French themes, Gothenburg themes, Japan themes, as you saw earlier. They made not just a live in Japan album, they also made a Spotniks in Tokyo. And this is then the Spotniks in Acapulco on the Swedish label run by Roland Färneborg. And it's $116 and 1,061 kronor, according to Discogs. I'm not sure if I've seen anybody pay that amount of money for it, but they must have, since it is, I mean, okay. I can tell you I bought mine for somewhere around maybe 50 to 100 kronor, less than $10. Right, number 5, Spotniks. Number 4, this is a bit confusing because we talk about the bootleg, and Discogs aren't too keen on having bootlegs sold on the website, but sometimes they value them though. And this is a bootleg, Genesis live at Rainbow London 77. Looks like this, doesn't look anything. White label, not too interesting, but the material is good, well recorded, and the sleeve is actually, if you look on the inside, you might be able to see that it is actually a copy of ABBA's Arrival that they've used as a, and taken it and, well, printed it on the inside like this instead. I was a bit surprised that this was, this had such a high value, because I bought it on a regular record store where I thought they would have had some idea whether this was anything special for collectors, and I bought it for a fairly small sum. I don't actually remember, but it was less than 100 kronor. This is valued at $118 US dollars, and 1,077 kronor. I bought it because I thought it looked interesting. I had no idea that it was rare or valuable. And I mean, when it comes to bootlegs, it's all a bit hit and miss. You never know what you'll get, or whether it'll actually sound appealing or not, or appealing or appalling. But this is quite good, I think so. Genesis, live at Rainbow London 77. Okay, at place number 3, third place, we have Small Faces. Small Faces, Small Faces. By Small Faces, of the Immediate label, Immediate record label. This is English pressing, and it's not in the best condition, so the value isn't as high as it is on this list. But if this had been in excellent condition or better, it would have this value. All right, Discogs values it to 131 US dollars, or 1,204 kronor. Despite its being rather worn here, it is a very nice album, and I'll keep it until I find a better copy. But I paid only maybe 10 kronor or $1 for this, so yeah, a bit of a bargain despite it being very worn. Okay, over to number 2 on this list, and yeah, back to Monica Zetterlund and back to Record Store Day, the Record Store Day issue of 2012. It's a copy of her first album that was originally issued in 1958 on Columbia. It's Swedish Sensation. Swedish Sensation. And this is reissue from 2012, a numbered limited edition of 350 copies, just 350 copies. So that may be one reason why this has become now a collector's item, not just the original one, but also the fairly recent reissue. Only 350 copies were printed, and it's numbered. This is 260 of 350. So I guess those who really wanted it, they bought it fast, and those who weren't quick enough, it was sold out rather quickly. So that's why, probably. Okay, Monica Zetterlund, Swedish Sensation, and she was. Okay, over to the most valuable record, and I'm going to tell you a bit about it before I show it. It's a record that I found in Luleå, in a, well, sort of flea market second-hand store, in a box of very different vinyl albums, mostly Swedish dance bands, Swedish religious albums, some James Last party albums, and so on. And among all those albums, that I think they costed 5 kronor each, maybe 10 kronor each. This was back in the, I think, late 1990s, or maybe just after the millennia. I found this album and I thought, what is this? I had no idea what it was, and I just was curious, and since it cost almost nothing, I bought it. And then a couple of years later, when I went online and started researching about records online, I found out that this is a rather sought after and very rare album, and it's many of you will never even have heard of this, but it's a singer and songwriter and drummer called Jon Erik Axelsson. He made 2 albums in the early 70s. This is the second one, I think, from 1972, and it's called Spår. This is what it looks like. This is valued at $228 or 2,080 kronor, and I bought it for maybe 5 or 10 kronor. It looks very homemade, as you can see, and it sounds quite homemade too. You could, well, like a private recording, lots of fuzz guitar, many different styles, like a private basement rock category, as they talk about it on Discogs. It's on the label G Production, run by a man called Stig Wiklund, who would later mainly record accordion music and Swedish dance band, maybe some Swedish country as well. So it's with lo-fi, psychedelic. When I listened to it, I thought, well, this is all right, but I didn't think that much more about it. But now it is the single album that it's worth most according to collectors, well, according to Discogs anyway. So Spår by Axelsson from 1972. Well,
jag trodde på pengar och makt, tog farväl, vände dig min brud, men fann ingenting igen.
well, that's all for now. I hope I didn't bore you to death by this. And again, I know Discogs valuations, take them with loads of salt, and I do. This was mainly for fun, yeah, but most of my videos are mainly for fun. So, all right, thanks for watching, and have a great day there.